Hello, and welcome to Global Data Themes Instant Insights. At Global Data, we define a theme as something that keeps a CEO awake at night, as businesses that invest in important themes will succeed, and those that don't will fail.
Hello and welcome to Instant Insights. I'm Ed Thomas and today I'm joined by Sarah Coop and Emma Taylor from Global Data's Thematic Intelligence team, and we're going to be talking about a Tokyo court's ruling that a restaurant review platform operated by Kakaku.com unfairly altered the way user scores were tallied. Following this outcome, the court requested the company disclose part of its algorithms. Hi Sarah and Emma, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for having us on the podcast.
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Absolutely. So, Emma, starting with you, what does this ruling mean?
So, I think this ruling highlights, it's indicative of this ongoing tension between tech companies and regulatory bodies. So, and that is that big tech companies believe, they should have a right to keep their algorithms as trade secrets, because often these algorithms are key differentiators and assets to their business. So it's unsurprising. However, regulatory bodies, with pressures from small businesses and workers affected by the algorithms, are demanding these algorithms should be laid bare.
And why is that particularly important, Sarah?
So, algorithms and AI, while it's progressed a lot, have a history of making biased decisions. This kind of stems from using unrepresentative training data, and then that is transferred into the algorithms, because if kind of minority groups aren't represented in the training data, then that can lead to basically biased algorithms. And algorithms and AI are making more and more important decisions instead of humans. Kind of hear about AI being used to screen CVs, also used to decide kind of who gets universal credit or credit scores, things like that. So these are quite kind of key, really important, detrimental decisions, and kind of you can't have inbuilt bias in those decisions. I think it's only a matter of time until algorithmic transparency becomes essential. Gatekeeping algorithms is unsustainable and unethical, especially when it's to do with these kind of significant decisions with significant consequences.
So obviously, you mentioned that, Emma, that big tech is very keen to keep its algorithms to itself, shall we say? So what does this ruling mean for those big tech companies?
So I think this ruling in Japan is part of a wider, real and momentous movement, which is demanding greater transparency within an even greater movement, which is around general antitrust for big tech. So, for example, recently we've seen Apple in the Netherlands have been forced to stop requiring users using Dutch dating apps to use Apple's in-app purchase system. We've also seen, so the EU has proposed making the USB-C charging port ubiquitous for all devices, including the iPhone, from 2024. So big tech, there are some wins in regulation here, and it's part of a bigger movement. I think this particular ruling in Japan means platforms now will be concerned that they'll be forced to reveal their algorithms' workings, or risk a very expensive and possibly grueling court case. So I think it's within big tech's interests to comply with algorithmic transparency, to avoid these, but also to avoid difficulties like strike action, which Uber has recently experienced due to their lack of algorithmic transparency. I think a desirable consequence of this case would be for it to spark this sort of domino effect, forcing all big tech companies to implement adequate algorithmic transparency regulation.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and definitely that's like a best case scenario for big tech to have to open up their algorithms and reveal basically how they're coming to these decisions. I think in practice it will take a number of years, particularly because kind of as AI is developed, a lot of these companies are using neural networks, which is kind of the algorithms behind these AI models. Neural networks is basically includes multiple layers of algorithms. I think it has to include at least 3, and these emulate the human brain. And as you can imagine, that makes things really, really complicated. And there's a lot of opacity or black box algorithms, which means you kind of can't deduce exactly what's behind the algorithm and how, from that input data, it gets to the output data. And I think the way to kind of combat this is to have the consideration of transparency in the development process. We hear about DevSecOps which is basically inbuilt security into algorithms, considering that the entire way through the development process. And I think we need that for transparency as well. And up until now, that hasn't been the case. So I agree with you. I think tech implementing adequate kind of algorithmic transparency would be great, but I wonder how long it would take to get to that point.
Desirable, yeah, but difficult in practice, yeah.
Absolutely, but I think we can all agree that greater transparency is always a positive, certainly for consumers, if not for the big tech companies. But thank you, Sarah and Emma, for those instant insights. Thanks everyone for listening. From all of us at Thematic Intelligence, see you next time.